We don't need to read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion and medicine, law, business, engineering. These are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what stay alive for. To quote Whitman, "O me, O life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, what good amid these, O me, O life?" Answer, that you are here, that life exists in identity, that as the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. That a powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What verse will you be? That is something more than likely has been overquoted the last few days because it's an unfortunate reason. Robin Williams passed away on Monday at the age of 63. He was found dead in his home due to an apparent suicide. And that is not why we're here today. We're not really going to go over the merits of what happened to him and how it happened. And we're here today on the Special Room for Improvement podcast to talk about his legacy, to talk about the man, the comedian, and just the indelible mark that he's left on everyone, and especially comedy. With me today, we have 3 comedians, all of which are from Ugly Baby. It seems like every time we have you guys on here, there's always one more. It's like you're a weird hydra that just keeps popping heads.
We're building to a full baby.
Ugly rabbit.
Don't get us wet. Don't get us wet.
We have Chris Davis, Eric Sokol, and Mike Cunliffe. Gentlemen, how's it going today?
Very good.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. Under circumstances. Very good.
Sure.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys on, but obviously the circumstances are not great. Robin Williams, huge comedic icon, passes away. Just initial reaction, you guys, when you heard the news on Monday.
It felt like someone punched me in the chest.
Yeah. No. I mean, it did feel like just a big hit. Like, I mean, we don't know Robin Williams. We're not related to him. We don't know anybody who's related to him. And I guess it's coupled with that feeling that you just have as being a human being for another human being that's suffering. And then combine that with how this person's been around your whole life. You're so familiar with them.
And he's something extraordinary. I mean, he's definitely not a normal person. So to lose someone so amazingly talented, it just is shocking.
Yeah, it's like I think I said that before we started recording. It's one of those deaths where you'll remember where you were when it happened. It's like he's that guy that, when they started listing off all the things that he's been in, all the films he's been in, television shows, stand-up specials, appearances on talk shows, things like that, you realize he's been around pretty much my entire life, and he's always been Robin Williams. It's like, I remember, as a kid, whenever he was on the Tonight Show, my parents would be like, they would tune in. It's like, oh, Robin Williams is on. Got to see what crazy thing he's going to do. And it's just, but he's always, whenever you think of him or you see him on television or a movie, something like that, there was always a sense of just a smile. He's the kind of person that I can never think of an instance, even when he was in a film where he played a dark character, you always knew, well, that's Robin Williams. And when he's on the talk show promoting that film, he's going to be Robin Williams, and he's going to be making everybody laugh, and he's going to be the funniest guy in the room. And that's kind of, it's just weird to think that the funniest guy in the room isn't in the room anymore. It's just like, that's just weird, and it hurts.
You, all 3 of you guys, you're improv comics, and one of the things he was really known for is just we have something on the website right now with the owner of the Comedy Club Stardome, where he says he was able to make any situation funny. He could take any situation and just make it humorous. What was it about him? Do you guys was he one of your influences growing up? Is he somebody you've tried to model yourselves after in your careers?
I don't know if I tried to model myself after him. I always admired what he did. Like, the first time I saw him was not just Mork and Mindy, but I remember the episode of Happy Days where he played Mork from Ork, and then they liked so much they spun off into a show. And I remember him being just so weird and goofy and incredibly innocent at the same time. Like, his character was so innocent. Like, everything was new to him. He was learning about everybody. And that seemed very close to his personality to me. He was always learning and just very curious type of person. And I just really enjoyed watching him on TV when I was younger, just doing all this wild and crazy stuff that I wish I could do that. I wish I had the guts to do that. Because it takes guts to do that. You can get out there and try that and have it fail miserably. But he just never backed down from that kind of thing.
I have a really strong memory of childhood when Mork and Mindy came on after my bedtime. And I remember there was a special episode. It was a very special episode of Mork and Mindy. And I can't remember.
There were special episodes of Mork and Mindy.
I think it had
Mindy
to do
gets a
with,
hangnail.
It was something serious, like it might have been death or drugs or whatever. But I can remember my parents letting me stay up, and it was a really special thing. And it introduced me to Robin and to that character, and I was aghast at how this man acted kind of like I acted as a kid. He didn't have boundaries. There were no boundaries in his comedy, so it was really amazing to see, and it definitely informed a lot of my comedy growing up and a lot of where I would go with things. And I would try to always keep people a little off balance when I did comedy because I saw Robin Williams doing that.
Yeah, I think the fearlessness, I think, is really the kind of the trait that he had that I think influenced me in the sense that he was never afraid to try something, and if it didn't work, he would just try something else almost immediately, and he was able to just riff off of anything. I mean, when he would I keep going back to all these talk show appearances, but that's always been like to me where you saw him unfiltered, or at least playing to the crowd, and often, without a net. Because like when he did a stand-up special, I'm sure there was improv involved in that, but that was an act. He'd worked that and worked the material. But when he was just off the cuff riffing with the host or the guests or the audience or something, it really sort of was like his presence was so strong and so fearless on stage that it sort of was inspiring to think, oh, that's how you do this. You can't have a limitation. You can't put a wall up and say, I want to go up to this point, but then I'm not going to go any further. And he didn't. There was no point for him not to go past. He just was out there. But then as he got into some of his more serious works, even though he started doing serious stuff earlier in his career, he got more well known for his serious roles later in his career. And I always make the joke that you can tell if he's trying to win an Oscar because he's got a beard. Like that was the defining thing. I was like, if he's in a funny movie, he's got no facial hair, and if he's not being funny, he's got facial hair.
I never thought of it. Yeah,
it's kind of it's there's a few exceptions to that, but that's kind of the general
it's a good
thing.
guide to go by.
Yeah. But even in his dramatic roles, it was the same thing. He committed to that role, and one of my favorite films, which I watched last night, is The Fisher King. And he's just amazing in that film. I mean, that whole movie is amazing in itself. Jeff Bridges and all the other cast members are great, but he's playing such a wounded character, such a tragic character, but he's a funny character, and he's putting it all out there. It's all right there, and he was never not that. Anything you saw him do or anything he was in, that's what he was, and that was sort of like very inspiring in terms of trying to emulate that.
I think it's funny. You did this last time where you start going a little further down like their mental outline.
Sure.
I was going to hit the drama.
I got you.
Stop it.
Okay, I'm sorry. If you would give me your notes beforehand,
They're up here, man.
Oh, see, that's
You're going to get us.
Got to get into his brain.
You're going to get banned from yet another Birmingham podcast.
I believe your next question is going to be to Chris.
You guys remember moments of him when you grew up, like Mork and Mindy. My generation, I think, is the same way. People my age, I feel like you're going to remember things like Aladdin. Josh is slightly younger than me, so I would imagine Jumanji, which is a phenomenal film, and anyone who hasn't seen Jumanji is missing out. Josh watched it last night. I think he's watched it at least 4 or 5 times a day since I've known him. But it was interesting that he's been able to always be in every generation. At least it seems like everyone can remember him for something, and then you kind of grow up with him. And then he did. He went to the dramatic roles, and it's funny because even in back then, because he had like that nice mix of comedy drama with things like the quote from the beginning of this came from, and Dead Poet Society, and then Good Morning Vietnam. What if you had to pick, like if you preferred, did you prefer just his straight comedy, or did you like the drama, or did you kind of like the little in between movies?
I'm going to step right out there and say the in between movies. World According to Garp is just amazing. It blows me away. It's one of those movies that I watched and then I had to read the book because it was just that good, and a lot of that was Robin's performance, I think. I don't know anyone else that could have done that performance.
I like I love Either Or with him. Like when he was in is it Insomnia movie with Pacino. I think that was the first time I was scared of Robin Williams. I was like, oh, Robin Williams ain't playing around. And 1 Hour Photo, that was the first time I was creeped out by Robin Williams. And I just thought it was so cool because I know he does dramatic roles, but I'm still not used to that. In fact, I think 1 Hour Photo was the most different I'd seen him. I've seen him in a serious role and kind of the villain kind of, but 1 Hour Photo, it was just like a very sad character, but creepy at the same time. It was just a beautiful role for me. I just loved him and that kind of stuff. I love the in between stuff too. Like what was it, World's Greatest Dad?
Yeah.
That was wonderful dark
comedy. It's a very dark. Directed by Bobcat Goldthwait of all people, which is just
really?
It's like okay, great. That is very, and it's also it's very in terms of this, the circumstances surrounding his death. That movie it touches on some stuff that's kind of like a little close to home. But I always thought that the things I didn't like to see him in were usually it was some broad comedy where you could tell they sort of left it up to him to fill in the gaps of the script. It was like,
if you're about to insult RB,
well, actually, Flubber comes to mind.
Okay,
but,
I'll give you Flubber.
Yeah. But there was just, you can tell there were some films where it was sort of like, well, we've got Robin Williams, so just let him be funny, and it's like, well, yeah, you can let him be funny, but it's not your product, your end result is going to be poorer for it. It's like when he committed to a character, and like Good Will Hunting, things like that, where he was like, you could tell that he had immersed himself into this character. He wasn't just being funny Robin Williams. He was actually playing a part. And even some of his funny roles, too, the same way. But I just enjoyed seeing him, in his acting roles, at least, tone that down and kind of become a character. And he disappeared into those characters. Like those films you said, it was like, it's like, that's not Robin Williams. That's whoever that character is he's playing.
And what I like about him, he loved to improvise, and everybody liked to let him improvise. But he knew when it was time to improvise and when it wasn't. Like I forget what movie it was. The director kind of said, "Just say the lines," kind of thing like that. And so he knows when to turn it off. He knows when this script is good. I don't need to mess around with it. And then he knows when to go wild and crazy and add really good stuff to it. Like he improvises so much. Like I guess today, people know that, like Robert Downey Jr., like in the Iron Man movies, I hear like he just balls up most of that script and just starts scatting and bebopping. And that's him. He's that good. And Robin Williams was like that. And there's very few people who, I guess, other filmmakers and directors will trust to do that.
Yeah, I think I remember reading something about it today where a testament to Williams was a lot of the movies he did, if you take him out, the movie doesn't work. And
Yeah.
Popeye.
Well,
Popeye does not work.
Popeye doesn't work with him in it.
Hey, no. How dare you? Whoa.
Easy.
We're going to have to hold
you,
Chris
sir.
back on this one. That's
dare you.
Yeah, you're stepping over. That, you remember that point I mentioned earlier? That you're going past it.
Yeah.
That's
And next you're going to start talking about Hook.
It's like Patrick
Aren't you?
Stewart
No,
as
I love
Professor
Hook.
X. It's like we've been waiting all of our lives for somebody to say Patrick Stewart to be Professor X. It's like, well, of course. And then when I heard Robin Williams was going to be Popeye, I was like, well, of course he is. We should have done this movie 30 years ago.
Well, and to me, like Popeye's a great example of a movie that I'm sorry, Chris, it's not really a good movie, but his performance in the film is great.
Yeah.
He's one of those actors where I feel like you could say that about a lot of movies. Jack, a terrible movie.
Yeah.
His performance in it, though,
Oh, fantastic.
really good.
Yeah.
And it's like that way in a lot of movies, and I feel like he was one of those guys who would take chances in roles that, honestly, if A Death to Smoochie came out 3 years ago, it would probably be a huge indie darling or even
Yeah.
a slight hit. But he did it in, 99, 98?
Yeah, something like
Something like
that.
A
yeah.
time where a movie like that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But he was always able to reinvent himself and find different ways and find different roles and end up in all these iconic roles. We were looking just at quotes. I was trying to think of a quote to start this off, and we were like, well, we could either go comedy, we can either go drama. Originally, I was going to go Good Morning Vietnam, but I cannot, for the life of me, act the way he does in that film. It would not do him justice, but that's the testament to him, these roles. Just off the top of your heads, like, what are some of the most, like, your favorite just lines of his, just from any film?
Oh my God.
Man.
Oh, that line from Hook about, and I don't remember the line, but wouldn't it be better to live? I can't remember it, but
The Life is a Big Adventure.
yeah. It's just fantastic. It's a great line, and he delivers it with so much heart, with no energy. He delivers it with
Because
no
he was
energy.
deadpanning on that whole
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I was quoting the Fisher King yesterday, and then I fit to the point where I was like, okay, I got to watch this movie now. But like just when he starts breaking out into song in that film, I like New York in June. How about you? And he starts singing Lydia, oh Lydia, oh, have you seen Lydia? Lydia the tattooed lady. When he's singing to Amanda Plummer in the restaurant. Just these little sweet, like you said, innocent little moments that are just kind of they seem real. But honestly, a lot of the stuff that's the lines of his that are going through my head are like lines from his stand-up routines.
Yeah.
Because I watched the first quote unquote R-rated comedy special I ever saw was one of his early specials when he was on Mork and Mindy. It was on HBO. I remember my parents.
He had the suspenders on, didn't he?
Yeah. And we got HBO, and my mom had gone out for the night, and my dad was home, and he wanted to watch it, and so he let me watch it. But he said, "Don't tell your mom, and don't say it."
Did she know before this?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't think she knew, and she probably still doesn't know to this day.
Don't tell your mom I gamble all the rent money.
But there was, and I didn't understand half of what he was saying. I just knew he was Mork and he was funny. But then from that point on, I would watch his stand-up specials, and a lot of the stuff of the lines of his that go through my head are things I can't say out loud on the podcast, but those routines are just ingrained in my head, and like I just see him riffing for 10 minutes on stage about life and death and his kids and all this kind of stuff.
One of the lines he said in one of his stand-ups, it was in the 90s, and he was talking about how all the sexually transmitted diseases you can possibly get, whatever. And I remember him saying, in the 90s, sex is going to be you and you. That was it. And he held his fingers up one like that. It was just really funny and true.
The talk that he gives to Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting when he's telling the story about his wife.
Oh yeah,
That
The 20 years.
The 20
I
years.
don't regret the 20 years line.
It's when he's telling the story about his. He's talking about his wife, about how she's really sick, and the word, the terms visiting hours don't apply to you, and we're sitting on the park bench, and then he's saying, and the whole speech he gives to Matt Damon about, if I mention love, you could probably quote me a sonnet, but you couldn't tell me what the inside of the Sistine Chapel smells like. It's like that just sticks with me. It's like that was one of those, you're just a punk kid, and just that movie itself is just very powerful in terms of his performance, and just the stuff he says kind of stuck with me.
But I think that, and that to me is what I think of how his legacy can be, because you could sit there and give a really heartfelt quote from the phenomenal movie in Good Will Hunting, even though it did give us Ben Affleck. But you can sit there and quote, the you and you. Like the spectrum is so broad with him, even to the point where you could think of like a Mrs. Doubtfire and just the word hello, like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He's making like one word iconic at the same time. He takes like these long, drawn out speeches and makes like everything in Dead Poet Society was just him trying to get an Oscar. I guess he just didn't have the beard.
Yeah. See, there you go.
He learned though. He learned.
He learned.
John Wayne, put on the eye patch. Just play John Wayne with an eye patch. You'll get an Oscar, man.
Do you think? It's kind of a weird question to ask this because you're having to assume that there could be someone like it. But do you think there's ever going to be another comedian like him to really take over the mainstream like he did?
I thought about that today, and I don't know if there's going to be anybody who could lay the groundwork that he had. I mean, you gotta start in the late 70s and then go to 2000. So somebody, you better start right now at age 8 maybe, and you can catch up. But I don't know if there's anybody around who can. I think there's certain people who could make an amalgam of Robin Williams, but I don't know if anybody could.
Yeah.
I also don't know if anybody could get away. I don't know if anybody would let anybody get away with that. Like sometimes there's certain people who can do things. It's like, oh, I like it when he does it. I don't like it when you do it.
Yeah, having somebody flip back and forth between comedy and drama so effortlessly, but also be a performer themselves, doing stand-up and being so groundbreaking in that respect. It's tricky now because, the way we, the entertainment world is now, it's all fragmented and it's YouTube and everything, online and streaming and everything like that. It used to be, back in the day when he was becoming Robin Williams, there was 3 television networks, there was, 2 pay cable stations. He reached a much larger audience just because the audience was only focused in on 2 or 3 avenues. And now with the YouTube and everything else, having someone with that large of an impact, I don't think is possible anymore, regardless of what they do, whether it's comedy or drama or whatever. I don't think that's why you don't see megastars like you used to. It's just that the audience is so fragmented. But it's interesting how touched I've been by just scrolling through like my Facebook posts and all these friends of mine that are from all different age ranges, younger than me, older than me, how he impacted everybody. It's like almost everybody is just so distraught and upset. It's interesting because his impact was so large over such a huge group of people, in terms of range of age. I don't see how somebody else with the way the world is now being able to do that again. I could be wrong, but
it's definitely going to be rare.
Yeah.
It's a rarity. I mean, I think Steve Martin is the only other person I can think of that had a comedy career and a decent acting career in that realm. There are other guys that had close, but I don't think there is. No one comes to mind for sure, and I think it'll be a while before we see someone with that kind of energy and talent and those kind of skills.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of people who can do comedy and drama like very well. But all that in between, that was Robin Williams. I'm not sure if anybody would do that again. I mean, maybe, but we certainly don't have to want one or hold somebody to that standard or condemn or praise them if they are like that. So,
Chris, do you want to do it?
I would love to.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for you to ask. I've got suspenders in the closet here.
Wait, our closet?
Yes.
He keeps them everywhere.
I didn't even know we had a closet.
I've been living in the cafeteria, okay, here at the
We have
building.
a cafeteria?
It's the bathroom, all right? That's what I call the
Okay, we got a couple of
cafeteria.
those.
Okay.
I
I have nowhere to go, all right, Sebastian. I'm a squatter.
I'll get you some chips from the vending machine.
Thank
when
you.
we're
That's
done.
all I wanted.
It is interesting, though, because even looking at his career, it's something like a Morgan Mindy, which was his jumping off point, would have been the end of most people's careers, especially nowadays, because he would be typecast. He basically was Steve Urkel just from space.
Yeah.
In the 70s, with his nanu, and yet for some reason, he got away from it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can do that anymore. I feel like you're going to always be, and to your point, like the idea of the YouTube to Twitter to social media, just latching on to these characters.
Yeah.
That to me, I think, would be the end of it. There's just no way.
I think it's sometimes it seems like it's like back in the day, there were times where you could be typecasted. Like Bela Lugosi in that era, he was typecasted. He was a classically trained actor. He was supposed to be like a leading man, but you said no, you're Dracula. Sorry, and he died Dracula.
Yeah,
Nobody
Ron
let him do it.
Jeremy type cast.
Yeah, Ron Jeremy. No one's ever going to put him as the romantic lead. But it's like then there was this era. It was like, well, like Sinatra. Sinatra sang and he danced and he could do serious stuff and he could do comedy. In that era, I think everybody did everything. And then it's like, no, you need to do one thing, and we're going to hold you to this forever. And now I think you don't get so typecasted these days. And it reminded me, somebody said once about Robin Williams, it's like, are you funny or are you serious? You're going to pick one. It's like, why? If you're terrible at one, then by all means, pick one.
Yeah.
But if you're good, it's like, I forget, there was a lawyer commercial right now. Nothing against the lawyer. But it's like, my father used to say, to do two things at once is to do neither of them at all. Well, maybe your father sucked at doing two things. Maybe your non-multitasking dad should stick to coal mining or, I don't know, sheep shearing, whatever he did back in the day. But I don't think typecasting is as bad these days. Sometimes it's hard to get out. Like poor Lindsay Lohan, I don't know when she's going to dig her way out of that.
Yeah.
And get back into getting good roles and stuff. So
She's really hoping for Mean Girls, the reunion.
Yes.
It's been 10 years. I feel like
Poor-
she can jump on that board.
poor girl.
One thing that I've found interesting, and I think actually makes a lot of this the story sadder, is just some of the stuff that's kind of come out the last few days and just who he was off screen. I feel like a lot of times now when you hear about stars, they're very different people off the screen. They're very like to themselves. They don't really want to talk to people. But then you'll have these stories. I don't know if you've seen Norm Macdonald's series of tweets, and if you haven't, you gotta check them out. It's just Norm Macdonald. I did not know could actually make me slightly emotional. Like just reading what he wrote is just amazing.
Yeah, he's done this a couple of times now for other celebrity deaths. Like he's had stories about other people that have passed away that he's encountered, and the one that he posted about Robin Williams is really it's just heartbreaking. I mean, it's a sweet, beautiful story, but it's just so heartbreaking.
I have to read them. I haven't seen them yet.
The Chris Cathard story that he posted today, and I don't know if anyone here has seen it, but he performed some improv. Robin Williams would just drop in at UCB in New York and just every once in a while perform improv. And he talks about how he would just light up the stage, but then they'd do a little halftime and he just would cower in the corner and basically not talk to people. And, I think I can understand that. I think that there's a certain amount of turning things on and then wanting to think about them that a lot of comedians do and a lot of comedians go through.
Yeah.
There's a darker edge to that. You're always on, always expected to perform and that kind of a thing. And I think especially for people that have that talent and that gift in such an extreme way that he did, the pendulum swings really far to that side, and inevitably it's going to swing really far to the other side. And I think that that's one of the things that makes a comedian funny sometimes is the pain and the inability to deal with it in the way it manifests in entertaining. It's like putting up a barrier. It's like if the audience likes this character, then they won't be focused on me. But then the flip side of that is well, if they really like this character, then they're not going to like me. And I feel like that, you hear about the stories about him suffering from depression and substance abuse and things like that, and he's been into rehab and things like that, and it just shows that it's not a to me that's a quality that's not something that can be fixed through what you do as a performer, or what your profession is. It's a deeper rooted thing that he just, I guess, for whatever reasons, couldn't handle.
And there's nothing to say that the comedy didn't help him keep those demons at bay for years.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I know Louis C.K. talks about that a lot. How comedy is his psychological release, and so hopefully this extended the time we got to see Robin Williams and didn't. Decrease the amount of time.
Yeah, I think George Carlin had a quote one time saying you could always tell when he was happy. It's when he released a bad album.
Yeah,
Because when he was depressed, that was his best material.
Yeah.
And the thing with Williams, I think, is interesting is you hear the stories like you hear Norm Macdonald's, and then I heard a story today about a family that was a grieving family that had just come from a funeral, or sitting in a restaurant, didn't see him, he just happened to see them over there crying and just kind of in mourning, and he just walks up, sits at the table, and starts making him laugh. And while at one angle that's a really beautiful story, at the same time, like you were saying, Eric, it could have just been his way of just masking it, and just really kind of trying to fight through the demons he had, which is, it makes it so tragic, but at the same time, he was still helping these people get through something.
Yeah, and all the like celebrity stories that you've been hearing or people tweeting or whatever, they're always talking about how generous he was and how, you know, how much he did for charity and how he, you know, he was just a genuinely sweet, good person. And, you know, nobody's, you know, you never hear bad stories about a Robin Williams encounter. You know, like anybody would ever see him in public, you know, he would take a picture and riff on them or something like that. And just that incessant sort of outward expression, you know, there's got to be a rubber band that you know, he's got to take that on the other side of it, you know, internally, and how do you process that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like when you say, "Oh, you're a comedian. Tell me a joke." You know, it's like I didn't realize until I became a comedian how annoying that was to comedians. Like I knew comedians were so annoyed by that, and I was in that situation. It's like, "Oh, you're a comedian. Make me laugh. Make me tell me a joke." It's like, okay, I didn't know there's a little hat and a hurdy-gurdy next to me. I had to jump around like a monkey or whatever. And at times it's like, okay, I'll try to make you laugh, but you don't want to. I mean, what if they don't want to laugh? What if they just came from a funeral or something like that? Maybe they're just sad. You know, you don't ask a brain surgeon to open your cranium. You know, it's just you have to be conscious and give people space and realize, you know, just because people are really funny like Robin was, that he wasn't hurting, you know, and he was. I loved Robin Williams, but what I really, really grew to love Robin Williams when I saw him and Jonathan Winters together.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, because I knew about Jonathan Winters telling his stories about admitting himself, you know, I don't know if it was nervous breakdowns or whatever like that, but he just couldn't cope with things sometimes. And he and Robin were like just thick as thieves. And they were the same people, because Jonathan Winters, the king of improv. Yeah. I mean, he'd be on a show in the 50s and somebody gave him a comb and he like comes up with 7 characters in like 5 minutes and wows the audience and just does all these crazy things. And then decades later, Robin Williams comes along, and seeing them together, I mean, I feel bad for the interviewer.
Was that your first improv experience, was seeing them together? Because it was mine, so I'm just wondering.
It was seeing them, they did a show together, and because my first real time of seeing improv was Jonathan Winters, and I was a huge fan of Jonathan Winters and just his voices and characters, and then seeing Robin and then putting it together, it's like, oh, they're improvising, they're making all this stuff up, and seeing those two together was such an inspiration to me. I loved it, but they both had their demons to deal with, and they both had sad points in their lives, and they were such kindred spirits to me, and they were such beautiful ends of the spectrum of comedy and acting. And Jonathan Winters also a really good serious actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you guys, and we'll steer it a little bit more back towards the movie side of it, because at some point it just gets really depressing. Not necessarily your favorite film, because I feel like that's such a hard question to answer, but say you have an afternoon to kill and you can watch one Robin Williams movie, because in a way this is going to morph into a question about Josh over here.
Get ready, Josh.
We're coming for you, Josh.
If you could just pick one movie, not necessarily your favorite, just one that you always seem to enjoy, what would it be?
Wow. I was trying to figure that with my girlfriend last night. We were trying to decide what
name dropper.
Yeah, what which one of his films to watch. You know, because that was sort of like, you know, what you know. Obviously, we want to pay tribute to him by enjoying his work, and you know, The Fisher King to me has always been my favorite of his performances. But that's a dark movie. It's kind of hard to get into. It's very touching and sweet, but it also goes some dark places. But I think just in terms of like, I don't know. It's a toss-up, I think, for me between Good Will Hunting, just because he's so good in it, Aladdin, because he's so good in it, or The Birdcage, because he's so good in it. But it's like, but he's completely different in all three of those. It's like what he's doing in, you know, in pardon the pun, in The Birdcage, he's the straight man.
Yeah.
to Nathan Lane, who is playing the character you would normally associate with his energy, and it's like he masterful at that. But then again, Aladdin, it's just a testament to like Robin Williams, and then Good Will Hunting.
And I would say Aladdin, some of the best voice work anyone's ever seen,
yeah.
because he does characters within the voice
Yeah.
as the character.
Yeah,
It's hard to do, I would imagine.
It's insane.
Jack Nicholson as Aladdin.
Yeah.
Bob Hope.
Yeah, the level of sophistication there is just, it's master level. That's like the guy that you climb the mountain to meet is Robin Williams because of those skills. I'm going to say Moscow on the Hudson because I know neither of you would say that. But it's a beautiful movie. It's fantastic, and I remember seeing it
Doesn't
as
he
a
have a beard
kid.
in that one?
Yes, he does.
Yes.
I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking, how is this guy suddenly Russian? It just didn't make sense to my teenage brain.
I do love Birdcage a lot. Now that you say that, I mean he is so straight. He is so straight in that movie, and
But not.
Yes, but not. But that's when the real subtlety comes out. Like anybody can just be wild and crazy, but if you can be subtle and get that really good laugh out of you and get that really good line in, because he does it in a way that, oh wait a minute, he said something funny like 15 minutes ago. I just got it. It was so subtle and cool. That, and of course Popeye. Popeye.
Ooh.
You should see
Popeye's
the
awesome.
glares across the table.
there's some
Popeye should not
threat.
exist as a movie. And not for the reasons you're thinking, but it shouldn't exist. It's like, how do you make a Popeye movie?
You shouldn't.
And they did it. They did it. They made a Popeye movie.
See, I love
He
the music
twisted
of
his arm
Popeye.
and punched
I
him.
don't like
The movie has problems, sure, but the music is terrific, and Robin Williams sings in it. Who
Yeah.
knew he
Look,
could sing?
I'm not knocking his performance. His performance, and I enjoy the music, but that movie is terrible.
I am going to eat a can of spinach
You should. It's
and
good for you.
punch you.
I don't think it works that way.
It
See,
doesn't?
That movie lied
No,
to
like,
you.
well, okay. You beat a Brutus. Anybody ever think, by the way, somebody brought this up to me, and I think it's a valid point. You ever think Popeye didn't really get strong from spinach? He just had an allergic reaction because his forearms blew up, but not his biceps. I think it was anaphylactic shock. Those were not feats of strength; they were fits of rage. He was like, da-da-da-da-da, "I'll kill you."
And that's why he's seeing the sailboat, because he's
Yeah,
hallucinating.
Right.
He's going crazy. None of that stuff's happening. Oliver was just looking at it hard as he beats up poor Brutus.
Oh, it all makes perfect sense now. Even Popeye, all great choices. I'm glad no one said Bicentennial Man.
Oh,
Although I do have a friend online who posted on my Facebook page that was his favorite of Robin Williams films.
So you unfriended him immediately.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
Good call.
Unironically, that's the one he picked. It's like, well, it's the old adage: every movie is somebody's favorite.
yeah,
That's-
So
it's a
it
good
doesn't matter what it is. The Room is somebody's favorite film.
yeah. And some people don't care for Robin Williams. You know, that's not your cup of tea. Robin Williams. Oh, I have them tied up in the closet with the suspenders.
Wait, does that make us an accessory?
Yes, it does.
And so are the suspenders. What? See?
Ooh.
Because accessory,
Ooh,
and it all
I
comes
see
back
what you
around.
did there. Oh,
Da-da-da-da-da.
haberdashery humor of Mike Cunliffe.
Okay. So young Joshua at Joshua Zavadal on Twitter over here. He's 12. Don't say that too loudly. There are some laws that we are breaking by having you working at this establishment. Has only seen, I think, 9 movies in your entire lifetime. 2 of them are Homeward Bound, 1 and 2. But he's only seen what? You got Aladdin, Jumanji, Flubber, Hook.
And the one where he's got a backpack on.
Jack. Okay.
Backpacking,
backpack
the
movie.
beginning.
Backpacking
The
beginning.
backpacking,
So-
starring Robin Williams.
Wow.
So those are the only Robin Williams movies he's seen because he's 12.
Get the suspenders. We're going to need to tie him up.
That got weird.
We're gonna need more suspenders.
I need you because I'm going to keep this train rocking.
Yes.
I'm not going to say rocking. This train continue to move down the track. I want you guys to give him, and it could be the one you just said, a Robin Williams movie he should check out this weekend because he doesn't have a social life. A Robin Williams movie he should check out this weekend.
Fisher King. Fisher King, Fisher King, Fisher King.
World According to Garp. It's yeah.
1 hour photo.
It's also a really good spectrum because you get 3 entirely different Robin Williams out of that. And I'm going to stick with You Gotta See Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's just a phenomenal performance.
Why are you still here? You need to be going.
Yeah.
No, you have work to do for the rest of the evening.
To the Netflix.
Just watch them on Netflix. I won't tell anyone. Or some other streaming site because we're not exclusive to just Netflix.
There's so many choices now.
Or to your local Blockbuster.
Good luck.
For Josh's benefit, a Blockbuster was a building that you used to have to travel to in order to pick up plastic cartridges that you would put into giant machines.
My favorite part was then you got to go back once you were done.
3 days later.
3 days
And
later.
it demanded that you would be kind and rewind.
I never did.
No.
No, never.
I used to work
Never.
at a
This is
video store. We used to
America.
charge
Ain't
for that.
rewinding.
25 cents if you didn't rewind it.
They had a machine, though. Like, if you go to Blockbuster, they have the machines. They could do it themselves.
Those
They had
machines
it.
cost money, man. Those machines cost money.
They clearly had Blockbuster money at the time. They were
Ah,
fine.
well.
I've
Now,
never
granted,
gotten
now.
We see how well that worked out.
I never got a video from a store and had to rewind it myself and got enraged. It's like, why isn't there a system to stop this tragedy?
You're just standing there with your copy of Flubber, like, I'm going to be
Rewind,
late to soccer
rewind.
practice. Come on. All right. Speaking of rewind, which would in some sort of way be wrapping up, that's a horrible segue to tell you that it's time to wrap up. The
Rewind to the end, please.
We have to go back.
It's Australian VCRs. That's how they do it.
They might still have VCRs there.
Probably. Stupid
I don't-
Aussies.
I
In
just-
Australia, you have to fast forward them because it's backwards. See? Hey, Josh got it.
I like
Stick with me, kid.
Did we just declare war on Australia?
I think we did.
I think so.
Did you redo? Did you redumped?
I'm gonna get a nasty email tomorrow from Hugh Jackman. Thank you guys. All right. We do need to wrap it up, though. I don't really know how to wrap up a more somber edition of the show. Just quickly summing up what you'll remember most about Robin Williams in just one sentence. That's right. Condense everything you know about him into one sentence.
Very funny and genuine.
Really hairy forearms.
Can I change mine? Can I change mine now? No, go ahead, Mike.
That's hard to do. I guess just laughter. I mean, really, that's when you think of Robin Williams, that's kind of what I think of. Is just uncontrollable laughter.
It's a good answer. I think of the word smile, like you said at the beginning, because every time he came on, it put a smile on my face. And I hope this trip down memory lane of Robin Williams has been able to do the same for you, especially in light of the tragedy of the loss. For Chris Davis, for Eric Sokol, for Mike Cunliffe, and for Josh Zavadil, I am Sebastian Posey. Thank you for tuning in to the Room for Improvement.